Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z Flashback, a series of short playthroughs of the 150 games that make up the Atari Flashback Classics collection for Nintendo Switch. Don't forget all these games are also available on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, the only difference is that the Atari Flashback Classics collections on those platforms are made up of 3 separate volumes instead of one nice self-contained cartridge like we've got on the Switch. Today's game is Fire Truck, which excitingly, as you can see here, is one of the games on the Atari Flashback Classics collection that you can actually play in vertical tate, if you will, vertical mode when you're playing in handheld mode. And that just gives you a slightly better view of the screen. It gives you a slightly truer experience to the original. To my knowledge, you can't put the docked mode into vertical mode, but yeah, you can try it on handheld at any time. Anyway, Fire Truck. Fire Truck is a game that came out in 1978 as a sort of follow-up to a game called Superbug, which came out the previous year. It was the work of a guy called Howard Delman, and it was one of several racing games that Atari put out during this period that all worked in basically the same way. But Fire Truck had a unique selling point. It was one of the first ever games to feature a 2-player cooperative mode. Most 2-player games up until this point had been strictly competitive affairs, with players squaring off against each other, trying to score as many points as each other, defeat each other, that sort of thing. But in Fire Truck, you had to cooperate in order to survive. You just had one score between you, and you had to work together. The basic cabinet for Fire Truck had a sit-down section, where someone had a steering wheel and pedals to brake and accelerate. And it also had a sort of tiller at the back, which had a second steering wheel. And the way it worked is the player at the front controlled the speed of the truck and steered the cab of the truck, and the player at the back would control the trailer. And so that would make for some quite amusing experiences if you weren't quite in sync with one another. Now, thankfully, it is quite possible to play Fire Truck in single player. And in fact, there was a completely single player variant called Smokey Joe released. Quite a few people are a bit more familiar with that version than the 2-player Fire Truck version. So, but they're both basically the same game. Smokey Joe is just specifically designed to be played by yourself. The Nintendo Switch port we've got in the Atari Flashback Classics collection, you can play in either single player or 2-player mode, and in single player mode you can choose whether you want to drive the front or the back of the truck, so you can get a feel for both sides of the experience. So you're not missing out on anything if you don't have any friends like me. Ooh. Anyway, enough of that, let's go play Fire Truck. Right, here we are with Fire Truck, one of several driving games put out by Atari in the early days. So we have a few flashing buttons you can see down at the side there, so we can actually switch between the hard track and the easy track with the track select button in the lower left. If you're using a controller, you just press the ZL button to switch between those. And when you start the game, you can choose, if you're playing by yourself like I am today, you can choose whether you want to be driving the front or the rear of the fire truck, or you can play in that unusual 2-player mode in which you have to steer together. Let's have a look at both modes and see how they work. So we'll start with the front start, and that means we are driving the cab of the fire truck, and there we go, and the trailer sort of follows along behind us when we do that. And so, like most of the other Atari driving games of the period, the way this works is you just have to get as far as possible before your fuel runs out. There's no end goal or anything like that. You just have to go as far as you can, score as many points as you can. And along the way, you have to avoid bumping into the sides of the road, bumping into obstacles on the road, and that's pretty much it. So the controls for this might take a little bit of getting used to if you're not used to this particular era of Atari arcade games. So the original arcade cabinet had a steering wheel, but it wasn't a steering wheel which controlled relative to which direction the truck was moving at the time. So it wasn't a case of you turn the wheel to the right to turn right, if you see what I mean. Yeah, it sort of was, but we'll explain how in a minute. What the steering wheel controller basically was it was actually a kind of paddle controller. So it was always tracking which direction it was facing, and the fire truck would move in the direction that the controller was facing. And so the way that translates to the analog controller on the Nintendo Switch version here is that rather than just pushing left and right to turn left and right, what you actually do is you literally push the direction that you would like the fire truck to move on the screen. So here I'm pushing diagonally up and right, I'm pushing right, diagonally up and right, up, left, and so on. And that's actually, for me, a much more intuitive control system for a top-down driving game than what we get in certain other games and adaptations. So if you consider sort of early computer adaptations of games like Super Sprint, in which you would have to turn left and right by pushing left and right and then accelerate by pressing the button, yeah, this feels actually much more natural and intuitive. Even if it might take a short period of adjustment if you're not overly familiar with this already. But all of the driving games in this collection work in this same way. So when we come on to look at Superbug, which was the predecessor to this game, and Monaco, I think is the other one, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they all work in the same way. So once you've got used to handling Fire Truck, you can play all those games without too much difficulty. Although each of those other games, they do have their own interesting little twists on the mix. So Fire Truck has the sort of two components of the Fire Truck that you have to control together. Or at least bear in mind if you're playing by yourself. Superbug and Monaco both have gear shifts to do. There's no automatic gear shifts in those ones. And Monaco has actually moving traffic to avoid as well. So we'll see that when we come on to that game in the future. And that's pretty much how this game works. You'll notice on this this opening splash screen here, it says bonus for 160. So if you score 160 points, you'll get extended play. You'll get some more fuel, and then you can continue trying to score as many points as possible. I don't believe there's another extend after that. So if you do get to 160 points, you better try and make as good use of it as you possibly can. You also notice down at the bottom it gives you a rating as well. So the basic rating you'll get if you're below a certain point is it'll just go sorry in a really patronizing sort of way. But over a certain point you'll get good. Beyond that, I don't think I've done any better than this on this particular game. I've done better on Superbug and Monaco. And I believe there's something like Pro or something beyond that point there. But yeah, so the main incentive to replay this is to sort of try and get the higher ratings, try and get a higher score and so on. Alright, let's try driving the rear of the truck. So you see now, quite a different experience. Much more difficult to handle by yourself. In that you have to sort of steer a bit more in advance and try not to jackknife yourself. Oh, I've messed this up big time. Straighten up. There we go. So that is the big challenge in this game, is sort of getting your front and your back end in sync with each other. Otherwise you'll end up losing a lot of speed to that sort of skidding sound. And it's definitely much easier if you're playing solo to control the front of the truck, but it's oddly rewarding and satisfying to play as the back and actually not make a complete hash of it, like I have so far. Oops. So if you're controlling the rear of the truck, then the computer seems to sort of make an educated guess on what you mean. So in most cases it does fine, but if you make too many quick course adjustments or you turn too quickly around a corner, then it can sometimes get a bit confused, and that's what will throw you into a certain amount of chaos. So 100 points, not bad. So we get so-so. So there is a so-so rating between sorry and good as well. So let's have another go with the front, because yeah, I mean playing from the rear is it's a nice novelty. But it's not really a terribly practical way to play if you want to actually get some good scores out of this game. Of course, the real way you should be playing this game is with two people. But Oh no! As in most cases, I'm on my tard at the minute, so we just have to muddle through. Now you'll notice that this is a vertically oriented game, as several of the earlier Atari arcade games were. If you're playing with your Nintendo Switch in handheld or tabletop mode, then you can actually play it vertically if you want to, which is a nice bonus. You don't have to, though, so it's not like those old Atari Lynx games where you had to play clacks with your links grasped awkwardly in a vertical orientation. But the option is there if you do want it. One quite interesting thing about the handheld modes in this game as well is that most of them have some sort of touchscreen controls as well. And for some games, those work really well. I'm not a big fan of them for this game, but if you think back to games like Avalanche that we saw a few weeks back, that works really nicely with touchscreen controls, because it's literally a one-to-one thing with you touch the screen here, your paddle goes to here, and that's if you want to get the high scores in Avalanche, that's probably the way you're going to need to play. But in this, I feel the analog control system we've got going on is just probably the most intuitive way to play, once you get a feel for it. And once you stop swinging the back end of your fire truck into things. This is a great game for annoying people around you, by the way, as you can probably tell by those sound effects. They do serve a purpose, though, for the most part, anyway. So the ding 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 is you scoring points. The siren probably doesn't need to be there, but you know, you're driving a fire truck, so atmosphere, immersion, realism. Everyone loves a bit of those things. But yeah, that's Fire Truck. It's a really simple game, but I found myself really enjoying these early driving games. So obviously they're not in the slightest bit realistic or anything like that, but they have a very distinctive feel to them that I find quite pleasing. Like I say, just that analog control is just really nicely intuitive and satisfying to get a certain distance and take aim for those high scores. Oh, we nearly got 160 there, but we are ace rated now, which is nice. There we are, ace, not pro. Let's have one more go. See if we can hit that 160 extend mark. Like I say, I can do that fairly reliably on Superbug and Monaco, but not on this one, just because you have that additional consideration of that trailer going along behind you. Now, if you do decide to play these games, one thing that it's worth getting used to is not simply slamming down the accelerator and hoping for the best. So it's actually well worth just easing off the accelerator every so often, just so you stay in control a little bit more, just so you have a little bit more time to respond to corners coming up. So, I mean, yes, you can literally change direction very quickly with the nature of the controls, but it's still good to just have that little bit of extra margin for error. Particularly when you've got to take into account the back of the truck swinging around behind you as well. So it's pendulous. Your pendulous back end. I feel I should meme here and make some sort of reference to being dummy thick and the clap of my ass cheeks are lurking in the guards, but you wouldn't catch me doing that sort of thing. You catch David Hayter doing it, though, which I found hilarious. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then don't worry. Don't worry, I just spent too much time on the internet. Well, that wasn't 160, was it? Let's have a go at the hard track. I'm not promising a spectacular performance here, but let's have a go. So the hard track, like I say, you can trigger just by pressing the ZL button on the Switch version here. There would have been a button for it on the cabinet. And here we go, the hard track. So the hard track isn't vastly different or anything. It's just got shorter straights and a lot more in the way of corners. And if you're wondering, those bits that look like there's multiple routes, they are not multiple routes. You have to follow the arrow. If you don't follow the arrow, you'll end up in a dead end and crashing. So watch out for those. I don't believe you score more points for playing the hard mode or anything, so it's literally just for bragging rights if you want to play that. There, you have to follow the arrow up there, because if we would have gone to the left there, we would have just reached a dead end. I like the presentation in this. I mean, it's just simple tile-based graphics, but it provides a nice sense of you actually progressing around a map. And okay, if you were to draw out this map, it wouldn't make any sense. It would probably cross over itself and all sorts like that then. But it's just got a nice feeling of going somewhere. It's got a feeling that you're progressing towards somewhere. And if I'd played this back in the day, I would have probably tried to work out where this road was going and wonder if there was anything at the end of it. Of course not, realising that the nature of the game meant that the road would simply go on forever and there would be no end to it. You just drive on forever in utter meaninglessness, never reaching the fire you're supposedly on your way to. It's like life, really. You take aim for a goal, you never really reach because there's always somewhere just a little bit further, something just a little bit more out of your reach that you need to take aim for. And you're never truly, truly satisfied until you die. That's not true at all. There are people who achieve their goals, and that's fine, and that's great. It's just you won't achieve them in Fire Truck because it goes on forever. Yeah. That was going well for a little while, but no longer. No longer. I've lost my concentration now. Not going to get that 150 either. I'm no ace. I am merely good. Alright, one more try. This is the last try for today, I promise. Let's go. Oh, that was not a good start, was it? You remember how I said this was the last try? Well, I find myself distinctly unsatisfied with this playthrough. So I might just do one more after this. I'm definitely going to do one more after this. You know it's going to happen. Just because I've just messed this run up beyond all recognition. These elite pro fire truck skills that I've been demonstrating up until this point have gone out the window. And I'm just driving like an incompetent idiot. Or a games journalist from a modern publication. Ooh, burn! That actually wasn't... That's actually not a horrendous score considering how many times I crashed there. It's still good, but we're still going to have one more go. This one actually is the last time though, regardless of how many times I crash. And I'm going to concentrate. I'm going to pay attention to the road. I'm going to keep in the middle to avoid the cars down the side.
I'm going to turn nice and early so I don't have to swing my pendulous back end into the walls. I'm going to see how far we can get. So how are you, dear viewer? I hope you're having a nice day. I do hope you're not waiting for a fire engine to arrive, because witnessing what's going on here probably would not fill you with a great amount of faith in the fire service. No, no! It was going so well. I thought we were going to have a Elite MLG 360 no-scope perfect run there, but no. It was not to be. We are still but a good. Anyway, that's Fire Truck, also known as Smokey Joe in its single-player only incarnation. Hope you enjoyed that. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue the small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.